All right, let's swing into action. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the physics of oscillations.
Oscillations.
Yeah, oscillations, and we've got this really cool resource to help us out.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It's a whole website built around a 10 pendulum simulation applet.
A 10 pendulum applet.
Yeah, you know those things that just swing back and forth?
Right, pendulums. So, what's so special about this website?
Well, on the surface, you might just think, pendulums, how exciting can that be?
I mean, they're kind of mesmerizing to watch, but yeah, where's the depth?
Trust me, there's a lot more to this than meets the eye.
Okay, I'm listening.
The site uses this 10 pendulum thing as like a gateway
Gateway to what?
to this really fundamental concept in physics. It's called simple harmonic motion.
Ah, simple harmonic motion. We're getting into some real physics now.
Right. So maybe let's break that down a little.
Sure.
What exactly is simple harmonic motion?
Well, in a nutshell, SHM is all about objects that move back and forth.
Back and forth, like how?
Well, it's like a very specific kind of back and forth.
Right.
They oscillate or vibrate in this really predictable way. Think of it like a guitar string. When you pluck it,
Yeah.
what happens? It vibrates
Yeah.
back and forth, and that makes the sound, the musical note.
Oh, I see.
Or imagine a car, when it goes over a bump and
Yeah.
it bounces a couple times before settling down.
Right, right.
That's SHM in action, too.
So it's like anything that kind of moves back and forth in a regular kind of way.
Yeah, you got it. The object moves around this stable point, the equilibrium point,
Okay.
and it always wants to get back to that point.
Interesting. So this website, it uses the pendulum to help us understand this whole SHM thing.
Exactly it.
Okay. And so how does that work? I mean, it's just an animation, right?
Well, that's the cool part.
Hmm.
It's not just some static thing. You can actually play with it.
Right.
You can change, like, the gravity.
The gravity, you mean like how strong gravity is?
Yep, you can crank it up. You can dial it down, see what happens.
Wow.
You can change the length of the pendulum rods. You can change the starting angle, even the mass of the pendulum bobs.
So you can really like experiment with it.
Precisely. It's like having a little virtual physics lab.
Cool.
It's one thing to just read about how gravity, affects a pendulum's period,
Right.
but it's a whole other ball game to actually see it happen right there in front of you.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, it's funny. Back when I was in physics class,
Yeah,
I remember struggling with this concept. It just felt so theoretical.
I hear ya until you can really see it happening.
Exactly. It's like, oh, now I get it.
Right. It clicks.
So, okay, I have a question about something on this website.
Go for it.
They asked this question, what's the maximum angle you can release the pendulum from before it's not really SHM anymore?
That's a great question. It gets at the heart of what makes simple harmonic motion simple.
Okay.
So think about it this way. For small angles,
Yeah.
the force that pulls the pendulum back to the center,
Uh-huh.
it's directly proportional to how far it is from the center.
Okay.
But if you go past a certain angle, it's like around 10 degrees.
Yeah, they said 10 degrees, right?
Right. That relationship breaks down.
Oh, interesting.
And the pendulum's motion, it gets more complex.
So that 10-degree mark is like the limit,
Yeah, you could say that.
where it's like, okay, now things are getting a little too wild to be simple anymore.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, assuming the Earth is flat.
Okay.
Works fine if you're just walking around your neighborhood.
Right.
But if you want to fly a plane, you need a better model.
That's a good analogy.
So the small angle thing, it's a handy tool, but got to know its limits.
For sure. So understanding those limits is important for really understanding SHM.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the site also mentions these things called learning outcomes.
Learning outcomes, yeah.
What are those exactly?
So they're like a list of specific concepts
Mhm.
they want you to understand after using the applet.
I see.
Like one of them is about the relationship between displacement, velocity, and acceleration.
Oh, right. Those three things.
They're all linked together, and the applet shows you how they change over time.
Yeah, I remember that was a tricky concept back in the day.
It's got to wrap your head around.
Can you maybe elaborate on how the applet helped you visualize that?
Sure, so picture one of the pendulums swinging.
Okay.
As it moves away from the center, its displacement increases.
Meaning it's further from its resting spot?
Exactly. At the same time, its velocity is changing too.
So it's speeding up and slowing down.
Yeah, it starts at rest, speeds up as it swings towards the center,
Right.
then slows down again as it reaches the other side.
Okay.
And then there's acceleration. It's always pointing towards the center.
Like it's pulling the pendulum back.
Exactly. So you see, even though it's just swinging back and forth,
Yeah.
there's a lot going on with those three variables.
So the applet helps you see how they're all connected?
You can slow it down, freeze it, even plot graphs of them over time.
Oh, wow. So you can really see how they all work together.
Precisely. It's like peeling back the layers of this seemingly simple motion.
I love that analogy. Okay, so the website doesn't stop there.
It keeps going.
They also have these learning experiences.
Learning experiences.
Yeah, things to do that go beyond just messing around with the applet.
Interesting, like what?
Well, one is to use the applet to figure out what affects a pendulum's period.
The period.
You know, the time it takes for one full swing.
Right.
So you can change the length, the mass, the gravity, all that stuff.
And see how it affects the time it takes to swing.
Exactly. It's like a hands-on way to test if you really understand the physics.
So it's not just playing around. It's about using the applet to solve problems.
Yeah, exactly. And there are other learning experiences too.
Oh, like what?
They want you to think about this concept called phase.
Phase, okay.
Which is kind of like relating the pendulum's motion to going around in a circle.
Huh. That sounds kind of abstract.
It is a little bit, but it's a really neat way to visualize SHM.
Okay, I'm curious.
Basically, imagine the pendulum's swing as like a shadow of a point moving in a circle.
So by connecting those two ideas,
you get a deeper understanding of the whole displacement, velocity, acceleration thing.
Wow, so this simple applet really opens up a whole world of concepts.
I know, right? And they've really thought about how to make it a fun learning experience.
They have, and to top it all off, they even have a bunch of extra resources.
The extra resources.
They've linked to other pendulum simulation applets. Some are even fancier.
Fancy pendulums, nice.
There's a YouTube video. It shows all kinds of oscillators in action, real-world stuff.
Oh, cool.
And get this, they even have resources for exploring SHM.
Wait for it.
In molecular systems.
Wait, molecules can do SHM?
It sounds crazy, but remember, SHM is everywhere.
Right.
From big things like pendulums to tiny things like atoms.
So are you saying these little molecules are basically like mini pendulums?
In a way, yes. They wiggle and jiggle around their equilibrium positions.
That's wild.
It just shows you physics works at all scales, from galaxies to molecules.
That's mind-blowing. It's like zooming out from the pendulum to this whole other world.
Exactly. And it reminds us that physics is about finding these patterns, these connections.
There's like a universal language.
And SHM. It's one of the key phrases in that language.
Well said. This deep dive is really opening my eyes to how important SHM is.
It's everywhere once you start looking for it.
I'm starting to see it everywhere.
Okay.
Now, the website also talks about resonance, like it's a big deal with SHM.
Resonance, yeah, that's a crucial part of it.
They talk about how it can be both good and bad.
It's a powerful force, but you got to respect it.
I remember that bridge collapse video. Pretty scary stuff.
The Tacoma Narrows Bridge, a classic example of resonance gone wrong.
Yeah, but you said it can also be good, right?
Oh, absolutely. Think about musical instruments.
Oh, yeah.
A guitar string, it vibrates at its natural frequency when you pluck it.
Makes sense.
But that sound, it wouldn't be so loud without resonance.
Really?
The body of the guitar, it's designed to resonate with the string.
Oh, so it's like they're working together.
Exactly. Amplifying the sound, that's resonance in action.
So resonance is like the secret ingredient in music.
You could say that, and it's not just music. It's used in all sorts of technologies.
Yeah, like MRI machines.
Right. They use resonance to create those detailed images of the body.
So they make certain atoms vibrate?
That's the gist of it. They target hydrogen atoms, which are all over in water and stuff.
Cool.
Then by picking up the signals from those vibrating atoms, they build the image.
That's incredible. This simple concept of resonance does all that.
It's amazing what you can do with it when you understand the physics.
Well, this deep dive is really making me think about SHM in a new way.
It's not just about pendulums anymore.
Right, it's everywhere, from atoms to bridges to even my own heartbeat.
It's like a hidden symphony playing out all around us.
I love that. Okay, so we've talked about pendulums, resonance, even molecules.
Quite the journey.
But the website also mentions something else, critical damping.
Critical damping.
Yeah, and they say it's especially important for things like car suspensions.
Ah, car suspensions, a great example of where damping matters.
So what is it exactly, and how does it make our rides smoother?
Well, critical damping, it's all about finding that sweet spot. Critical damping, it's all about finding that sweet spot where oscillations are dampened quickly and efficiently. It makes sense why that would be crucial for a smooth and safe ride.
So it's like you don't want it to be too bouncy.
Exactly. If the damping is too weak, the car will keep bouncing after hitting a bump, like riding a pogo stick down the road.
Yeah, that sounds awful.
Not exactly a recipe for a comfortable ride.
But you're saying if the damping's too strong, that's not good either.
Right, you hit the nail on the head. If the damping is too strong, The suspension becomes stiff and unresponsive.
I guess that would make the car harder to control.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to maneuver smoothly, especially on uneven terrain.
So critical damping is all about finding that balance.
Precisely. It ensures that the car absorbs the impact smoothly, returns to a stable state quickly. It's that perfect blend of comfort and control.
It's like the suspension system is having a conversation with the road,
I like that analogy, responding to every curve and bump.
keeping the car stable and the passengers happy.
Absolutely. It's a dynamic interplay between forces and motion.
It's pretty amazing how much engineering goes into something like a car suspension.
It really is a testament to the power of applying physics principles to solve real-world problems.
I'm learning so much from this deep dive.
Me too. It's always fascinating to explore these connections.
And speaking of connections, you mentioned that the website links to other pendulum simulation applets.
Oh yeah, those are great for taking your exploration further.
What did you find particularly interesting about those?
Well, I was fascinated by how different developers approach the same concept.
So different ways of looking at SHM.
Exactly. Each applet offered a unique perspective, highlighting different aspects of the phenomenon.
Did any specific applet stand out to you?
One that caught my eye allowed you to explore the factors affecting a pendulum's period in even greater depth.
So going beyond what the main applet offered.
Precisely. It gave you incredibly fine-grained control over variables, like gravity, rod length, and mass.
So you could really zoom in on those subtle changes in the pendulum swing.
Exactly. It's those subtle changes that often reveal the most intriguing insights.
It's like looking at the world through a magnifying glass.
I love that analogy. It's about paying attention to the details, the nuances that often go unnoticed.
Did any particular observations stand out to you while using that applet?
I was struck by how even tiny adjustments to the gravitational field could have a noticeable effect on the pendulum's period.
Really? It's that sensitive.
It turns out it is. It made me realize how interconnected these variables are, how sensitive these systems are to their surrounding conditions.
It's like a delicate dance between forces and motion.
Beautifully put. And speaking of delicate dances, there was another applet they linked to that I found particularly intriguing.
Uh-huh. Tell me more.
It explored a slightly more complex system, a pendulum attached to a spring.
A pendulum attached to a spring. I'm trying to picture that.
It's called a spring pendulum, or an elastic pendulum.
It sounds like things could get pretty wild with that setup.
It definitely introduces a new level of complexity.
How so?
Well, now you have two types of oscillatory motion happening simultaneously.
Two types.
Yeah, the swinging of the pendulum and the stretching and compressing of the spring.
Oh, wow. So it's like two interconnected systems, each influencing the other's motion.
You got it. And that interplay can create some truly mesmerizing patterns.
What kind of insights can you gain from playing around with that applet?
You can see how the interplay between those two types of motion creates either a regular predictable pattern or something more chaotic and unpredictable.
Controlled chaos versus predictable order.
Precisely. And you can manipulate various factors like gravity rod length, mass, and even the spring constant.
Which determines how stiff or loose the spring is, right?
You're on a roll. By tweaking these variables, you can see how they influence the overall motion of the spring pendulum. It's a fascinating way to delve into the intricacies of coupled oscillations.
Coupled oscillations, huh? Another new term for my physics vocabulary.
It's all about how interconnected systems influence each other's oscillations. And believe me, it's a rabbit hole worth exploring.
It sounds like it. So these applets are great for getting hands-on with SHM.
Absolutely. But the website also goes beyond simulations.
Right, they have that YouTube video showcasing oscillators in the real world.
I love those kinds of videos. They help bridge the gap between theory and reality.
It's one thing to understand the concepts,
But seeing those concepts come to life in real-world examples.
it makes it all so much more tangible.
Exactly. It solidifies your understanding in a way that words and equations alone can't.
You mentioned those slow-motion videos of vibrating objects, like drum heads and bells.
Those are some of my favorites. They reveal the intricate dance of energy and motion.
It's like you're seeing sound visualized.
Beautifully put. It's a reminder that even seemingly static objects are teeming with activity at a microscopic level.
That these oscillations are happening all around us all the time.
Precisely. Often operating in ways we don't even realize.
It's a hidden world of motion just waiting to be discovered.
And speaking of hidden worlds, let's revisit those resources for exploring SHM and molecular systems.
Right, that connection really blew my mind. How the same principles that govern a swinging pendulum can also apply to the vibrations of atoms and molecules.
It's a powerful reminder that physics operates at all scales.
From the macroscopic to the microscopic.
It challenges us to look for those underlying patterns, the connections that unite seemingly disparate phenomena.
Like a universal language that speaks to the fundamental workings of the universe.
Well said. It's an invitation to think more holistically, to see the interconnectedness of everything.
And that brings us to resonance, one of the most fascinating and important aspects of SHM.
Resonance, the amplifier of oscillations.
The website does a great job of highlighting both its benefits and its dangers.
A true double-edged sword.
We've talked about the Tacoma Narrows Bridge collapse, a sobering reminder of what can happen when resonance goes unchecked.
A powerful lesson in the importance of understanding and respecting this phenomenon.
But you also mentioned that resonance can be harnessed for good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's dive into some of those positive applications.
Sounds good to me. Where should we start?
One of the most common and familiar examples is in musical instruments. We touched on this earlier with the guitar string.
Oh, right, how the body of the guitar resonates with the string's vibrations.
Precisely. That resonance is what amplifies the sound, creating those rich and beautiful tones we hear.
So it's not just the string itself that's making the music, it's the interplay between the string and the body of the instrument.
Exactly, amplified by the magic of resonance.
It's like a harmonious partnership.
A beautiful collaboration between physics and art.
And beyond music, resonance plays a crucial role in medical imaging technologies like MRI.
MRI, a testament to the power of harnessing resonance for good.
You mentioned that MRI machines use resonance to create those detailed images of the body.
It's a fascinating process. Let me break it down for you.
Please do, I'm all ears.
Essentially, MRI machines use powerful magnets and radio waves.
So they're manipulating magnetic fields.
Exactly. Those manipulations induce resonance in certain atoms, particularly hydrogen atoms.
Which are abundant in water and organic molecules, right?
You got it. They're essentially targeting those specific atoms, making them vibrate at a particular frequency.
And by detecting the signals emitted by these resonating atoms,
the MRI machine can create those incredibly detailed images.
It's amazing how a principle rooted in the physics of oscillations can be harnessed to create such powerful and life-saving technologies.
It's a testament to human ingenuity and the interconnectedness of knowledge.
Well, this deep dive has certainly expanded my understanding of simple harmonic motion.
You too. It's a journey of endless discovery.
I'm starting to see SHM everywhere now, from swinging pendulums to vibrating molecules to even the rhythm of my own heartbeat.
Beautifully put. It's like a hidden symphony playing out all around us.
A symphony of oscillations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to further explore this symphony, let's turn our attention back to critical damping.
Right. We were talking about its role in car suspensions.
Ensuring a smooth and safe ride.
You mentioned that engineers carefully fine-tune those systems.
To achieve that perfect balance between comfort and control.
So how do they do it? What's the secret sauce?
Well, as we discussed earlier, critical damping is all about minimizing unwanted oscillations. And in the context of a car's suspension system, it's all about striking that Goldilocks balance.
Not too stiff, not too bouncy.
You got it. Too little damping, and you're in for a bumpy ride.
Yeah, like a lowrider bouncing down the street.
Exactly. And too much damping? Well, you might as well be riding on a wooden cart.
So it's about finding that sweet spot where the car absorbs those bumps smoothly.
Right, and then returns to a stable state quickly.
Without any extra bouncing around.
Precisely. Critical damping ensures the suspension system responds just right.
So it's a smooth ride, but also good control.
That's the key. It's about finding that balance between comfort and performance.
Wow, I never realized how much physics goes into a comfortable car ride.
It's a beautiful example of how these seemingly abstract principles,
like SHM and damping,
have very real and practical applications in our everyday lives.
This whole deep dive has really opened my eyes to the power of physics.
It's not just equations and formulas, it's the language of the universe.
It's everywhere we look, and it's amazing how something as simple as a pendulum
can unlock such a deep understanding of motion.
And not just motion, but things like resonance, energy transfer, even molecular vibrations.
It's all connected, And SHM provides this framework for understanding it all.
It's like a key that unlocks a whole new way of seeing the world.
And that's the beauty of physics. It invites us to explore, to question, to connect the dots.
And to appreciate the elegance and simplicity that often underlies the complexity of the universe.
Well said. This deep dive has been a fantastic exploration of simple harmonic motion.
It has, and I'm left with a sense of wonder and excitement to see where this knowledge takes me.
That's the spirit. Remember, keep your curiosity alive, and the world will continue to amaze you.
Great advice. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of SHM.
It's been my pleasure. Until next time, keep those pendulums swinging.
And those minds exploring.